Welcome back to EU4. Today's video is day 1 of this multiplayer event. Yes, day 1, as there was too much smooth brain tomfoolery to fit into an 8-minute epilepsy bait. 17 players joined, with your narrator choosing the Shi Turks of the Black Sheep. A perfect choice to round out the 6 Habibis. Karakwanlu, or otherwise known as QQ, because I don't want to say that all the time, are in an interesting location, gangbanged in the middle of 3 of the most terrifying Muslim nations in the game. The early years were very peaceful, with AIs keeping players distracted until conflicts of interest arose. It's no secret that Timurids were an existential threat. While other Middle Eastern powers were focused on their own arena, I unfortunately needed the Persia region to form a country starting with the letter P. DMs were exchanged, and the Timurids, later Mughals, agreed to give me territory after they secured India. However, I couldn't wait. Horses are expensive, and the primary way to activate my horse genjutsu was to gather enough tribal chakra, which becomes weaker as I develop my territories, going from Chad tribal warriors to flabby arm urbanites. So I once again slid into the DMs, and the Osmanoglu family were interested in my plans. With my superior horses, generals, and Ottoman manpower, we can finally beat the strongest empire in the world. The Mughal armies were quite well endowed. Valiant battles were fought across the entire Iranian plateau between the Turkic empires. Cavalry and janissaries won many battles, but eventually the front lines broke, allowing the entire Mughal army to siege down my capital. In addition, the Ottomans had to redirect most of their forces to deal with the Austrians taking advantage of the situation. It was up to QQ and a small detachment of the Sultan's best to defend Tabriz. When it was finished, Mughals surrendered. The future of Persia was saved thanks to the Ottomans, probably the most important war in the Middle. Hey, what's that noise? All the North Africans were engaged in a bitter jihad when the Mamluks decided to kill the Tunisian Sultan, scaring the Moroccans who now shared a border with the Mamluks. This kicked off the second phase of the war, where the Moroccans aided with Ottoman forces and the remaining Tunisians launched an attack on the Mamluks. Despite being in a two-front war, the Mamluks had the better military, especially with the Ottomans still recovering from the Mughal wars. With both armies unable to provide support, the Mamluks dominated the battlefield. With only a brief period of success in Syria, the alliance couldn't bring down the Mamluks, so the war ended up being a back and forth until the Ottomans were stack wiped in Anatolia, forcing their entry out of the war. Following this, they went into bankruptcy. Morocco and Tunis were left to fend off their larger North African neighbor, but the session ended before anybody was sent into the observer screen. Geopolitically, the war forced me to ally with the Ottomans and aid them in their bankruptcy, with everyone fearing another conflict with the rising power in Egypt. But like in all EU4 games, we have one question: what the fuck was happening in Europe? Today's section was definitely a highlight for West Asia, so we'll have to see if Europe can maybe be more interesting in the next day.
3 hours later.
The Middle Eastern geopolitical situation is on fire as the Mughals have collapsed. The Ottomans are coping as they lost a 1v1 versus the Mamluks. Since I came out unscathed, I continued to support my Turkish cousin, especially since I needed someone to help me fight the Mamluks, who quickly took advantage of the sick man in Anatolia. The second Mamluk war was brutal, especially since this was one of the first competitive EU4 MPs I've played, so aspects of wars such as reinforcing armies, overstacking, or the funniest one, Scorched Earth, were new to me, which makes it longer for enemy armies to enter a province that was scorched, resulting in consecutive losses in this war. But due to the Mamluks pissing off everyone in the northern hemisphere, we had enough armies to throw at him into the meat grinder. Our armies reached Aleppo, where we learned that the entire country was scorched, and we were pushed back by the Mamluk NC. Victory, though bloody, was achieved, and we were able to regain territory for the Ottomans. Now, this war's outcome will reflect the current Afghanistan situation. As the player had left his nation and the AI declared war on the Mamluks player, we allowed the war to play out, as no one wants to defend the big brain EU4 AI, but under the condition he took a little bit of land. Does this look like a little bit to you?
War never changes.
We had a large hug box between nations stretching across the planet. It's not unfair, but this war was before we had quote-unquote rules. The war itself expanded beyond the Middle East this time to include nations outside such as Austria, France, Delhi, Bahmanis, Electric Room, Among Us, and Joe Biden. The mistakes of the previous war also continued, and the Mamluk player scorched his entire country to the ground to make every offensive painful and bloody. The Europeans weren't much help, with the Austrians siding briefly with the Mamluks to take advantage of the Ottomans, and the French allies being beaten up completely by the North Germans. With the majority of the war, as usual, stuck in Syria, we only managed to turn the tide of the war when the armies of the Golden Horde and Munga sacrificed their lives to capture the capital of the Mamluk Sultanate, stalling the Mamluk war machine and allowing us to push through. When the dust settled, the Ottomans, Morocco, and Lubeck all took their piece of the Mamluks, while I was content to finally know that peace has come to the Middle East. Why is he black? A new Mamluk, Ottoman, and Persia war was gearing up. After a good couple of battles, it would seem that all sides in this war were coping. We have been fighting in the hot desert sands for about 4 hours. But you know what was fun? Jihad. At the expense of Ottoman clay, Persia, Ottomans, Mamluks, Commonwealth, and Morocco formed the Kebab Alliance. And soon the alliance was at Austria's border.
Damn, boy, he's sick!
China will grow larger.
Nice cock, thick, but not too flaccid.
I'm fast as fuck, boy. The fitness Grand Prix.
With the Christians outnumbered, they made a valiant defense despite our divine mandate for conquest. With our work finished, me and the Mamluks went back to bumping heads in the desert again. Only this time our populations had enough, balkanized explosively. Thank you everybody who watched this video, which is technically a re-upload of 3 videos. It's been a crazy journey for my channel. I've been making a lot of memes, started streaming on Twitch, and even made an official TikTok. And I once again have to thank all my supporters on Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube. With your continued support and all the comments that I get, I'll continue to upload more and more better content. Okay, bye!